So let's talk about the hunger plan. How important was the hunger plan and Lebensraum to Nazi ideology and to the whole Nazi war machine?
Essential to the whole thing. This is all about this notion that is embedded into Hitler's mind and into the minds of the Nazi Party right from the word go, is there is a big sort of global conspiracy, the Jewish Bolshevik plot. I mean, completely misplaced that Jews and Bolsheviks go hand in hand and sort of somehow dovetail. They don't, obviously. And the whole ideology is to crush this. You know, part of the way the Nazis think, the way Hitler thinks, is there is a them and there's us. We are the whites, Northern European Aryans. We should be the master race. We've been threatened by a global Jewish Bolshevik plot. We've been stabbed in the back in 1918 at the end of the First World War. We need to have to overcome. This is an existential battle for future survival. It's a terrible task that has befallen our generation, but we have to do this. We have to overcome this, or else we have no future. We will be crushed. It's absolutely cut and dry. And one of the things about Hitler is that he is a very kind of black and white, them or us, either or kind of person. It's always one thing or the other. It's a 1,000-year Reich or it's Armageddon. There's no middle ground. There's no gray area. It's just one or the other. And that's his worldview. And the reason he came to the fore was because of the crystal clear clarity of his message, which is, we've been stabbed in the back. There is a global plot. We have to overcome this. We are naturally the master race. We have to reassert ourselves. We have to get rid of global Jewry. We have to get rid of global Bolshevism. And we have to prevail or else. But if we do prevail, what an amazing world it's going to be. So he starts with this, every speech he does always starts the same way. Always starts from a kind of negative and always ends with an incredible positive, a sort of rabble-rousing crescendo of if you're in the front row, spittle, halitosis, and gesticulation. I mean, you've seen pictures of him. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of him. It's like, he's almost, he wants to grab the air and clutch it to him. You can see the kind of the venom coming out of his mouth just in a single still photograph. I mean, it's amazing. There's apps you can get now where you can translate his speeches. Mm-hmm. And it just sounds, by today's standards, you would just think, what a load of absolute wibble. I mean, just total nonsense. But you have to kind of put yourself back in the shoes of people listening to him in 1922 or 23, or indeed 1933, and see how kind of captivating that is to a certain part of the population. So yeah, so to go back to your original point, Lebensraum is absolutely part of it. So what you do is you crush the Bolsheviks, you crush world Jewry, then you expand. Britain has had this incredible empire, global empire. Germany needs that too. Germany's stuck in Europe. It doesn't have access to the world's oceans. So we're not going to be a maritime empire. We're going to be a landmass empire, the whole of landmass of Europe and into Asia. That's going to be us. And we're going to take that land. We're going to take the breadbasket of Ukraine. We're going to use that for our own ends. We're going to spread we're going to make ourselves rich, but we're also going to spread our peoples. We're going to spread the Aryan northern master race throughout Europe and into the traditional Slavic areas, and we will prevail and come out on top. And so you have to understand that everything about Operation Barbarossa, the planned invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, is totally wrapped up in the Nazi ideology. And people, I've read it that historians sort of go, if only Hitler had realized that, the Ukrainians have been quite happy to kind of fight on his side. If only he'd actually brought some of these Jewish scientists and kind of into the Nazi fold, then Germany might have prevailed in World War II. And you kind of think, well, you're missing the entire point. That's just never going to happen because this is an ideological war.
Yeah, this is not a pragmatic, rational leader.
No.
I mean, part of his effectiveness, we should say, is probably this singular belief in this ideology. There's pros and cons. For an effective military machine, probably having that singular focus is effective.
Yes, except that when you're making military decisions, if those decisions are always being bracketed by an ideology which is fundamentally flawed from a pragmatic point of view as much as a kind of
ethical,
a kind of reasonable point of view, you're kind of opening yourselves up for trouble. I mean, this is a problem he has with Barbarossa. They realized very early on in 1941 when they're wargaming this whole operation that it's not going to work. And so, there's people like General Paulus, who's on the general staff at the time. He's given a kind of, he's in charge of kind of wargaming this, and he goes, "This isn't going to work." And Keitel, who is the chief of the OKW, goes, "No, go back and make it work." He goes, "Okay." So he comes back with a plan that does work, but it's bogus. I mean, it doesn't work because they don't have enough. They don't have enough motorization. They go into Barbarossa with 2,000 different types of vehicle. But every single one of those vehicles has to have, different distributor caps and different leads and plugs and all sorts of different parts. There's the interoperability of the German mechanized arm is super inefficient. And so you've got huge problems because they kind of think, well, we took France in 1940, and that's kind of one of the most modern countries in the world with, one of the greatest armies and armed forces in the world, and we did that in 6 weeks. So, Soviet Union, look, they struggled against Finland, for goodness sake. I mean, how hard can it be? But what you're failing to understand is that attacking the Soviet Union is over a geographical landmass 10 times the size of France, just on the frontage. And you haven't really got much more mechanization than you had in May 1940 when they attacked the Low Countries in France. And you've actually got less Luftwaffe aircraft to support you. And you just do not have the operational mechanics to make it work successfully. I mean, it is largely down to incompetence of the Red Army and the Soviet leadership in the summer of 1941 that they get as far as they do. I mean, Barbarossa should never have come close to being a victory.